Hey guys, I am back again for another review. This time I'm going to do the whole Blade Trinity in one. I was able, I told you in my last video I was sick for like a week, 5 days. And so I watched a lot of movies. And Blade Trinity, the Blade, we can call all three of them Blade Trinity because it was 3 movies, but I watched all 3 Blades and here's my review. So Blade, the first Blade came out in 1988. It was directed by Stephen Norrington, written by David S. Goyer, remember that name, obviously starring Wesley Snipes and Stephen Dorff, and Chris Christopherson. It came out August 21st of 1988. So I remember seeing this on VHS. You know, we rented it for Blockbuster. My friend's mom did. And after watching it back, this is a pretty good first movie for Blade. The only thing that, like, this movie holds up, the only thing that doesn't really hold up is some of the CGI. But other than that, the fighting sequences, the writing, you know, Wesley Snipes acting, Christopherson, I hope I'm saying that correctly. He was amazing, as well as Whistler, and then Stephen Dorff, who played Frost, Deacon Frost. So I'm pretty sure we've all seen this Blade movie. You know, it's not going to be a surprise for some of us, but you know, pretty much Blade, you know, is half human, half vampire. And this whole movie here, he's trying to stop Deacon Frost from resurrecting the blood god. You know, Deacon needs Blade's blood to resurrect the blood god, so he can become this all-powerful vampire, and then he would turn other vampires into him so they can walk in the day and have all this power. You know, obviously Blade stop him. There's that cool scene where he gets his glasses in the air and, you know, gets his sword, and all the fight scenes in this movie and all of the movies were amazing. So, you know, as far as you know, my score of this, if you haven't seen Blade, I'm not going to go into great detail. It's a given. But the Rotten Tomato score of this was 58%, which I really don't agree with. I think back in the day, critics were critical of superhero movies. I'd give this movie about an 8.8 out of 10. Really good, decent movie. Blade, the first one. Which brings me to Blade 2. Probably my favorite one out of all 3 of them. You know, he's back again with Whistler, and you know, they're going against a new type of vampire strain out there. These guys open their mouths, this big old leech thing comes out, and you know, they have like this, these type vampires have like this bone in their chest. It was pretty crazy, but I love this movie. This one is my favorite one out of the 3. I just love how the fight sequences, especially with the Blade's sword, like he slices these vampires and they just like disintegrate. It's crazy. Man, imagine if, I don't know if you guys remember the show Angel, you know, with Buffy, if they had like a wooden sword, that'd be dope. You know what I'm saying? You stab these vampires through the heart, they just turn to dust. But anyways, he teams up with the Blood Pack. The Blood Pack is an elite group of vampires who come together to kill Blade, but now they have to come together with Blade to destroy this new threat. Turns out the vampires were the one who made this new threat. I forgot what his name was. Jared Novak. He's played by Luke Gross. And You know, as they're hunting these down, the blood pack starts to get very thin because they're getting killed off by these new vampires. And then, like I said, it turns out the vampires are the one who have made them, because they've been experimenting with, you know, trying to become like Blade. No one can kill them with silver. You know, they can walk during the day, but just Jarek Novak is not as perfect as they wanted him to be. But then they turn on Blade, and then Blade, you know, they try to take his blood, and Blade jumps in, you know, gets rescued by Whistler, jumps in the I wouldn't call it a pond, but like a little pool full of blood, and comes out and beats the crap out of everybody. That last fight scene with Jarek Novak, Patient Zero, was pretty cool. So, but yeah, I love this one out of the three. And as far as the Rotten Tomatoes score, hold on. So this movie, this movie was released March 22nd, 2002, which is crazy. I think, I was like in the 8th grade when this came out. It's directed by Guillermo del Toro. I know I'm saying that incorrect. And also written by David S. Goyer. Keep that name in mind. Anyways, the Rotten Tomato score of this one was 57%, which was 1% less than Blade, the first one, which I totally disagree. This one's better out of the three in the series. I'd give this one a solid 9 out of 10. Alright, last but not least, Blade Trinity. I actually saw this one in theaters. It was directed by David S. Goyer. Remember that name? Written by David S. Goyer. Obviously stars Wesley Snipes, Chris Tofferson, Jessica Biel, Ryan Reynolds, Triple H was in here. Dominic Purcell played Dracula, and also this one got, as far as Rotten Tomatoes, this is the lowest one out of all of them, is 24%. So this one, I understand what they were trying to do. I don't think Wesley Snipes appreciated. Like, it's not terrible as people say. It's definitely not 24% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like I said, back in the day, critics hated superhero movies. Not as much as they hate it now, but they didn't like superhero movies. Every superhero movie that I've ever looked at from the early 2000s to 90s were rated very low. And if it wasn't for the box office, I don't think any Wesley Snipes would have got any sequels. But, you know, it's not a bad movie. The whole Dracula thing was okay. You know, it wasn't terrible. I love Ryan Reynolds' character. Typical Ryan Reynolds. Early Deadpool as you can get him. Jessica Biel was a hot actress at that time. Still hot, but I'm talking about, like, as far as presence. But there's just so much. You could just tell that Wesley Snipes in this movie wasn't into it. You know, there were lawsuits. He was not happy with the other two coming in, which I get it, because Blade wasn't mostly in this movie. Like the last movie, you know, they had other characters, but mostly it was about Blade. This one was about Blade and Hannibal King and Abigail Whistler. So, and obviously the original Whistler, he dies in the beginning. But there was just a lot, you know. He didn't like David S. Goyer. I guess he didn't like the guy before either. And it was, I guess apparently he called Ryan Reynolds a cracker a few times. He wouldn't be acknowledged unless you called him Blade. Him and David S. Goyer did not get along, and that's probably why they didn't do a 4, because they were supposed to. Anyways, this one is not terrible. I'd give it a 8.2 out of 10. It's not as bad as people say it is. It's actually really good. It's funny as well. Not in line with the other two. Just put it that way. But anyways, if you saw Blade, tell me what your thoughts on all three movies. I enjoy watching them. The only thing, like I said, doesn't help is CGI. But until next time, guys. Peace.